My name is Ursula Darby. I am a public speaker, a certified grief educator, and a psychic medium. And I've been on the front line of grief, spirit, and survival for over 21 years. And I'm also a former stand-up comedian. This podcast tells the truth about this work, how it started for me, and what it's really like, and the parts that no one will say aloud. I'm a skeptic, and I hate cliches and the garbage that is in this industry. You won't get that here. This is episode 9. In episode 8, I talked about taking a class and how it kind of didn't get the answers that I was looking for that I needed at the time, and trying to still sort through my experiences, which you would think by now, right? It was it was a series of events really that got me to where I am today, and this is the beginning of my story about how this all started for me. So to kind of tap back into the teacher that I took classes with and where I wasn't really supported. And I told her about what that one person in spirit had done. And I just kind of took classes like, nah, no big deal, just do the thing. And I didn't really try, I just did them. And well, I was still taking those classes. And at that, because I forgot to share this with you, but it's just something that has come to mind. Because let me just start this way. When I recall a reading, most of them I don't recall. 99.9% of them I don't, and I forget all about them altogether, what's transpired. Thank goodness, because I don't think I'd be able to function in this world if I did remember. The ones that stay with me are because they're so impactful emotionally for me, or in a vivid way, or there was something that I took away from it, or something that I learned from someone else. And some of those things are just like, whew, really big ones. I ran into that teacher when I was going to set up for a vendor show as a vendor giving readings to people. And because I was still taking that course and I was reading people anyway, already in my profession. And I was about to walk in to set up my table, and her partner walked in front of me, and she turned and she's like, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, I'm one of the vendors. I'm going to be giving readings." And she had this look of disdain. And she looked at me like she was confused, like, well, you shouldn't be doing that. I'm like, why not? She gave me some excuse and just was really upset that I was there. And that didn't make any sense to me. And her partner turned and looked at me and said something too, like, you shouldn't be here or be doing this. You're taking this class. I'm like, I work in this profession. Like, this is my profession. And they didn't seem to listen to me when I said that. So that wasn't going to stop me. I set up my table, and it was like a little psychic fair at a store. And the owner of the store's daughter wanted a reading. And let me preface this first. I would never, ever, 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 ever have read her, because I just thought, oh, it's just something simple. She's going to sit in front of me. It's going to be no big deal. Just going to be a little chit chat. Because her daughter was 7 years old. She was a child. But who's going to read a child? I'm not going to. So when she sat in front of me, I just thought we were just going to talk about stuff, right? Like, oh, I just, I play with my dollies, like whatever that thing is, right? Like I didn't think anything was going to happen. Like I didn't. And because I was like, whatever. She wasn't paying me for it. I was just like, yeah, I'll read you, sure, whatever. I was like, it's like entertainment for her. So she sat in front of me, and I started seeing things really vividly in my mind. And I was like, uh-oh, okay, because what are you gonna tell us 7-year-old, right? Like, you're like, so you're in your future, you're gonna like you because I don't read that way, but I mean, right? Like, what are you gonna say to them? Well, this is what happened. I I began to see her sitting on her floor in her bedroom. That's what I could see in my mind. And I could see teddy bears like in a circle that she'd placed around her. And there's like teacups and plates in front of them, right? And I was just like kids are going to play with that kind of stuff. Cool. I get it. And I see her talking to the teddy bears and having like a little tea or whatever with them, and discussing. And it's a play. Like she's playing. She's playing. That's what she's doing. And I see her playing. but I hear human voices coming out of the teddy bears. And I realize that she's not talking to her teddy bears, that she's talking to people that have died. And I'm trying to figure out what to say to her and what kind of language to use for her to be able to make that connection. So I just use the example of what I saw and I had her fill it in because I wanted to find a way to help her understand what was happening and to let her know that I knew what was going on so she could have some understanding of herself in some way. And I said to her, "You like to have tea parties, don't you?" And she's like, "Yeah, I do a lot." So, yeah. And I said, "And you have these different teddy bears, and this is how many you put around you, and this is what your teacups look like, and where the plates are, and in your bedroom it looks like this." And she's like, "Yep, that's what that looks like, and that's those are my teddy bears." Yeah. And I said, "And you talk to your teddy bears?" And she's like, "Yes, I talk to my teddy bears. I do." And I said, "Because you're playing." And she's like, "Yes, I am." And I said, "But you're not actually talking to your teddy bears, are you?" And she said, "No." And she said, there's this person that visits me, and I could hear them. And this young adult showed up in front of me, and she told me her name. She was in spirit. She'd died. She told me her age, and she told me that she was family, that this was her cousin, and that she died in an accident. And I didn't say that to her yet. So I said to this little girl, I said, "You know this person that you're talking to?" And she said, "Well, she's an angel." And I said, "Is she?" And she said, "Yes." And I said, "Okay." I said, "Who's this person?" And I said their name. And she said, "That's my cousin." And I said, "And you talk to her?" She said, "I talk to her all the time." And I said, "I know, because she loves you." She's like, "Yeah, I love her too." And I was shown that this little girl had a very clear understanding of what mediumship was, despite using the word mediumship. That she knew that she was safe with this person that she was talking to. And this young woman was telling me how much she loved and adored this little girl and how she was there helping support her and letting her know that she's okay and that she's safe and that nothing terrible has happened to her. And this little girl and I just sat and talked after that because my mind was blown because I never expected to talk to a little girl and then have a world of other people in spirit show up. Because when I talked to her further about the teddy bears, I'm just saying that the teddy bears weren't talking. And she said, "I know it's not the teddy bears talking." And I said, "You know they're people." She said, "I know they're people." I said, "Okay, you know this." She's like, "Yes." So I'd be sure. And so I talked her through that she was safe and it was okay. And she understood that. So we had this entire conversation back and forth of I wanted to help give her the support and insight that she needed for her own experiences. And for her, it was something easy and a part of life already. When it would have been such a hard and difficult and painful experience for me. And I was super excited for her. And I said, "You don't have to talk to them all the time. You can choose when you want to, right?" She's like, "What?" I said, "You don't have to talk to them at night and stuff. You can tell them to leave you alone, let you sleep, okay?" And she's like, "Well, there's this person that talks to me throughout the night." And I said, "No, no, 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 no. You tell them to be quiet and to let you sleep, and that you'll decide when you're going to talk to them on your time, okay?" And she said, "Okay, I can do that." That experience, because when I was done sitting and talking to her, I'd approached the owner and said to her, "This is who showed up." And she burst into tears and she had confirmed who it was. And saying it was her niece and how much they love and adored her and how she had passed recently in a car accident and how valuable it was for her. And she wanted her daughter to see what a reading was like. And it just, it was helpful for all of us. I didn't say anything about it, clearly not till now. But it was that alone. I was just like, try to be stopped at the door, like, you can't come in here. You're not able to do this. And I'm just like, wait. Let me read a 7-year-old. I never read another 7-year-old. Just so all of you know, I didn't intentionally attempt to read anybody who was a child going forward from that time. Um, I just, I knew from that moment of speaking to her how valuable that was and how I could help children going forward, but it wasn't enough for me. I needed more experience. I needed to understand things better. I needed to have absolute clarity before I decided to do, I guess, not better, but bigger, different things with readings. And I finished that event and I was pooped. I was so tired. And I'd given several readings that day. And just that experience alone stayed with me. And in fact, that person of that store invited me to come back and to give regular readings there at the location, and which was great and helpful with, practice meeting people, reading everything. I mean, they're paying for it, I get that, but right. I mean, it's the more people you read, the more practice there is. And I was also giving readings to, friends that would ask about it, or if we talked about it, and like, oh, what's that like? Or how do you do that? And I would do that. And I continued to have experiences when I was in massage therapy school. And I I really I kind of came to the realization that when I'd watched a TV show that was quite popular at the time, that I was like, you know what? Maybe these people can help me on this show because of the number of people that have reached out and asked and talked to, and they couldn't help me. That maybe on this TV show they could help me in some way. And I contacted a show, and they ended up filming at my home. And they I was super stoked because there was two hosts of the show. They were both mediums, and I thought, oh, you know what, this is going to be amazing. And so they filmed. I think they filmed over 3 or 4 days is what they filmed over, and they obviously had a film crew. I had never appeared on a TV show before, but I'd been performing stand-up comedy before, and I knew about we'd done acting classes, things like that. Not that this was acting, but how to appear on camera, things like that. But I never what it's like to appear on camera. I wasn't uncomfortable with any of those kinds of things. It really didn't cross my mind, or I didn't really think about it. So they came and filmed over 3 or 4 days, and we had a set list on what to do and where to go. And they interviewed me, and they interviewed me, and they had done like a walkthrough. The show was about helping people that are trapped in spirit, people that are, causing a quote unquote haunting, which I've mentioned to you, and like basically lived a haunted life, I guess you could say to that point. And I remember telling them, I don't remember telling the mediums what had happened. I don't think I'd said that. I think I shared afterwards. I can't remember the exact sequence. And so they filmed over several different days, and then they did the follow-up because they did some kind of thing, whatever that thing was, to help these people in spirit that were in my home, to make them stop. Yes, make them stop. Somebody make them stop. I don't know why I'm singing, but I really wanted them to make them stop. Stop the visit. Stop. Please make them stop. And whatever that thing was, we weren't allowed to be privy to. We didn't get to see it till the show aired. So they did their thing, and then they did a follow-up. So the follow-up was meeting with me and my parents, because it was I was in one apartment, they were in another apartment, and so we all met together, and they walked us through what had transpired. And of course, the show was all kinds of spooky for the time. And they had mentioned about the crying woman because I'd said that I heard and felt a sobbing woman throughout the day near me all the time. And they had told me what had transpired, that a mother in spirit was looking for her daughter that was in spirit, and they'd reunited them, and that they had crossed them over. Wasn't sure what that meant really at the time, and had sent them home. Not sure what that meant either. And so it wouldn't be a problem anymore. It's all taken care of. It's all good. We're great. We're fine. And in that, they had introduced me to a spirit guide. And I didn't read up about spiritualism. I didn't read up about mediumship. I didn't do any of that stuff, especially about mediumship. So I didn't really know what a spirit guide was. And I'm skeptical. You haven't noticed yet. I'm skeptical about everything because of how I've been treated and how I've consistently been disappointed and treated. That I'm just like, no, no, no. Like if I'm going to make sense out of myself and my experiences, and if you're going to come to my table and tell me something that you do, then I'm going to be skeptical about it too, because you can't just tell me something and be like, oh, okay. No, I'm not doing that. Nope. So I was skeptical about what a spirit guide was. And from what I understood, what they shared with me was that a spirit guide is someone who has died, who's lived before, and that has had lots of life experience, and that help you from the spirit world or from the other side or where they're at home, wherever that is. And they help you guide you in your life here. Okay, still skeptical. So they introduced me, they talked about this person. So I was like, okay, got it. And they provided some evidence and details, pretty fantastic. I was like, wow, they were, they had some accuracies. Cool. And the hosts live in England. They don't live here. It's a Canadian show, but the hosts live in England. And the the historian on the show, we had stayed in touch. We had kind of struck up a friendship with the hosts, and I did, and with the historian. And so when they weren't filming here, the historian, they were like, hey, you know what? You want to learn about this? Like, I can take you to some haunted locations and I can show you some stuff. And I was like, cool, I'm on it. Let's do this. Because I didn't know, like, I didn't know any of these things, like, totally green about what this, especially about this subject. And so I was like, okay. So I felt hopeful that I would learn something and I'd be like, okay, like I can, I can get some ground to be like, all right, got this sorted out now. And I remember the historian saying, there's someone's reached out to us and, we this can't be on the show and stuff, but, maybe we can help somebody and, do you want to come with me and I can explain things to you? I'm like, cool. And it turned out to be like, I think an hour and a half drive for me or further from where I lived at the time. And I was like, okay, you know what? It's worth it. Let's take this leap. And got to this person's home, and I'm pretty sure it's a condo in a city, pretty big condo in a city. And I didn't know how to prepare or what to do, and I didn't know what to expect. So we drove there and we got there, and so knocked on the door to go walk into this place, and I'm just like, okay, cool. I'm just gonna see what I notice. That's what I'm saying to myself in my head. Just see what you notice. Like, just pay attention. Okay. So walk in, and so I was told to just walk around. All right, just walk around, see if you notice anything, see if you pick up anything, and see what happens. Okay. So I walk in the door. I walk around like the like dining room area, kitchen, living room, and I think there's two bedrooms, bathroom, walked around all of them, and I'm not noticing anything. Nada, zip, squat. I'm like, what a waste of time. It's a lot of time to get here, and nothing's happening. What am I doing? What am I doing? I'm really frustrated, but I don't let on that I'm frustrated. And so the person I'm with says, hey, okay, let's just walk out. I'm like, okay. So we walk outside and we close the door. It's like, we'll be back in a few minutes. I'm just going to talk you through some stuff. I'm like, okay. So she's sharing with me. And so she's like, did you notice anything? I'm like, no, nothing. No. See anything? No. Hear anything? No. Anything? No. Okay, so we'll just do this exercise in the hallway of the condominium. Okay. Let's let's do this exercise. And you're gonna listen to what I'm gonna say to you, and you're gonna do the things that I'm saying. Okay, cool. Got it. So she basically does a guided meditation for me in a few minutes in the hallway with my eyes closed, me standing up against the wall. Like, okay, do this guided meditation. Got it. Cool. I'm in. Are you in? Cool. All right, let's go back in. All right. So I do what I was told in the guided meditation, whatever those steps were, what I was shown, what she shared. And we opened the door to the condo again. And as soon as I walked in, there was a man that had died who was standing in front of me, holding a walker right in front of me. He had like salt and pepper hair, he had a hat on, he had glasses, he had a walker. He was mid 80s. And I'm like, he wasn't there before. I'm like, freaking out. I'm not scared. I'm just like, this is cool. So I saw this person. So she's like, do you see something? I'm like, oh, blah, 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 this, and this. She's like, okay. She's like, keep walking around. So I walk around. I go to walk up to the living room and the TV turns on. And no one's touched it and no one's used it a remote, nothing. It just turns itself on. And right beside the TV, I see a man in spirit standing there, probably like 6 feet tall, broad shoulders, really muscular build. And he's wearing a police uniform. And I can hear, I pick up how old he is. I hear it. I can't remember if I had his name or not. But I said to the homeowner that her dad had passed and he was a police officer. And I said how old he was. And she said yes. She was sitting right near where he was standing. He was the one that turned the TV on to get her attention. I don't recall who the man was by the front door, but I'm pretty sure it was another family member, but I can't remember that much. I remember the officer very clearly because he was very stoic, but he was so happy to talk to his daughter and see her. It was phenomenal. Like we stayed for hours. I was so stoked, so exciting to hear from this man in spirit and what he had to share, and so confused as to why I couldn't see or hear them before I did that exercise. But I was like, that must mean something. I just said how excited I was, and she'd said, if there's other things that come up or other investigations that you want to come on with me, would you want to do that? I'm like, absolutely. And that's where things started to change for me. Even after the TV show, the same night that the TV show was done, and we had the follow-up, and they told us what had happened, and the mother and daughter being reunited and connecting them and sending them home. And that same night, a woman in spirit walked in my bedroom and screamed bloody murder. And she just kept screaming. I felt terrorized. I was so scared. She wouldn't stop. She didn't say anything. She just kept screaming. I was terrified. The confusion between the end of the show of me thinking that this was going to be the solution, this is going to fix the problem, it didn't. And then learning a new skill after the show, long after the show, months after the show, and going to that person's home and being introduced to the historian and having that really vivid experience, I felt so conflicted and so confused. I still couldn't sort it out. And I just believed that I was under attack all the time and that I was powerless to it. And I was still scared. I still had moments where I was scared because really frightening experiences were still happening. And I was working professionally. I still hadn't discovered for me what was going to take the fear out of it, because even with developing a friendship with the hosts, I was trying to gain understanding through them. And I wasn't really getting far with that. Not because of lack of effort on my behalf. In fact, I'm pretty sure I was still really hesitant. And I just didn't want to be hurt any further from the history of people letting me down. I felt like I was at a disadvantage where I couldn't make those things stop. And I couldn't understand why those people in spirit were visiting me nightly. That still didn't make sense to me. So we're going to talk about that in episode 10. Thank you for listening. You've been listening to me, Ursula Darby. This podcast is the raw truth about grief, spirit, and life with honesty, humor, and no bullshit.